Hello,
And welcome to
the Champagne Room Secrets podcast.
What the fuck?
I don't know if this is shameful, but if you have a small dick, have a good personality.
Feeling the champagne.
Your wife died? Here, have a titty.
Not a sex podcast,
But it
a
is,
stripper
you can
place.
grind your clit on a guy's hard dick and come.
But you've never made someone come in their pants, right?
I'm Candy,
I'm Jade.
your friendly neighborhood whores here to walk you through the ins and outs of the strip club and sex work industry.
Uncensored.
We have a guest today. We are so excited to welcome Vivian.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here.
Hello.
I listened to Champagne Room Secrets, and I also listened to Other Words for Whore.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Shout out.
Yeah, we did. I don't think we've talked. I don't remember, but we did Other Words for Horror, like a month ago, Jade.
Yeah, we didn't. I don't think we talked about it on the podcast.
No.
we should have. But if you guys follow us on any social medias, you saw.
Yeah, it was fun.
I found Champagne Room Secrets through that because I listened to that episode with Jade, and I was like,
Oh, sweet. Okay.
I need to listen to all the rest of the episodes of your podcast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay, yeah.
That's awesome.
We were just talking off mic, so we don't have to say where you work right now, but how long have you been working in that other city?
So I have been in the industry for 13 years. I have worked
Okay.
all over the country. I started in Vermont, actually, which is nowhere.
Home of Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, we love our burn.
Feel the burn.
Actually, so like the funny thing about Vermont and that I don't really find in any other state is because we're such like a small state. Like the town I grew up in was 700 people. Like that's on a really good year. And so preschool through 12th grade, it was like 100 students. So you go to school with your senators and your representatives' kids and like your congressmen's kids, and they come show up at parent night, and like they're really, really heavily integrated into the community in a way that this Portland is my 17th city in the last 11, 12 years.
Oh, wow.
That I've lived in. And I haven't really seen that anywhere else. It's really nice. So we love Bernie. We love Bernie and we love his wife. Jane's wonderful.
You've met Bernie?
Yeah.
I'm gonna start crying. That's awesome.
I know Patrick Leahy. I met Jim. Nope, that's gone forever now. My ADHD kicked in. It's like when you close the drawer and the things disappear.
Yeah. You're like, next.
Yeah.
So our first question for you was like, what was your first foray into sex work?
I think I did sex work backwards. Most people, I think, start out as like strippers, or like they make like solo content and maybe they go into mainstream porn, or like, like the other ways around it. I started right off as a call girl. I was trying to get out of a really abusive relationship. One of my friends was like, hey, I work for this massage place. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Not true. And they'll pay for you to get your massage therapy license. Also not true. And of course, I did my first client. I did not finish what I was supposed to do. And my boss called me rip shit pissed, being like, do you want the job or not? And I was like, yes, obviously. And that kind of just started my whole career. About a month later, she looked at me and she goes, Vivian, you have a fucking attitude problem. Have you ever considered being a dominatrix? And then she got me my first dominatrix booking, and it was great. I also messed up on that one. It was hilarious. It was a golden shower for my first appointment, and I had never dommed anybody before. So the thought of peeing on somebody was a little much for me. I couldn't
Wow.
I tried everything.
I mean, because it's already really hard to make yourself pee in front of somebody. So when you're trying to be like that dominant character, your first time, like someone's like trusting you, oh my God.
As a dominatrix, that instance in my life, I had been through a lot of, sexual abuse when I was younger. And I had, like, as I was saying, I was trying to leave an abusive relationship. That man was the first man I was ever allowed to say no to. And if he didn't comply, I was allowed to beat the snot out of him.
Mm.
And then he also paid me for it. And so it like opened up this whole world of like empowerment that, and I'm sure you guys understand, like as a 19-year-old woman is not common for us to experience. And I know a lot of sex workers, I think we experience it faster than a lot of 19-year-old women do, because we're like put in such a position of like intense power.
Yeah.
So going back to that, your first boss gets you this booking. Is it at a dungeon or is it in the same massage parlor?
So it wasn't in a massage parlor, it was call outs. So I would go to the people for like their hotel room.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And did you get like a manual? Did you just go online and kind of?
I had Google. And so I started this back in 2010 and 2011, like 4 or 5 years before Backpages was taken down because of post-assessor, right?
Mhm.
Maybe a little bit longer than that. I'm not sure. So I started in 2010. It's like right after the 2008 fallout. On the tail end of that, we're still in the recession and recovering for that. My rates at the time was $75 for a half an hour sensual body massage and $150 for 2 hours.
Oh my God.
Which now, as a person who's experienced, like not ever once,
Right.
Yeah.
ever. And given they had to pay for my travel, and I had one client, and even though it was like the girlfriend experience for him for like an hour was like $200, and he would still pay me double that plus a tip and take really good care of me. So like
That's good.
my rates were really low, but luckily the clients that I had were like really very kind and generous.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Was that like the going rate during that time, like where you were?
I had no idea because I was 19 and working for this woman who like told me that she had it all taken care of and that she did all the screening and that she did all the advertising and stuff like that. And like, I didn't know how to do any of it. And Google back then, when it came to sex work, you could find forums specifically for this type of activity, but they were notoriously difficult to get into. And once you were into them, it was notoriously difficult to get people to trust you because it was so dangerous for them to hire you at the time. And for other sex workers in New England, there just wasn't many of us out at all. And so connecting with another worker would have been really, really hard for me at that time. So eventually I ended up leaving that company, getting into nude modeling, getting into softcore porn, taking on doming clients independently. I ended up at another full body sensual massage place in another state in the Midwest, really great bourbon.
I wonder.
Clues.
And getting stung, actually.
Oh, shit.
Which was serious shit.
What happened?
Wait, what does this mean, getting stung?
You got like busted by the cops, yeah?
So what happened is the night before I had been out drinking, I'd been out partying, like all of these things. And at the time, the place where I worked was this small little building. There were probably like 5 of us on shift at any given time. There were like a few rooms with massage tables in them. And there was like a manager who took phone calls and made bookings and all of that stuff. And it ran exactly the same way as a spa. It was advertised entirely as a spa. Obviously, things were not necessarily like that, right? I was late for work that day. And I drove in and the parking lot was filled with cars, which was really unusual. You know, like I'm exhausted and hungover, and I walk in and there are police officers everywhere.
Oh.
And my boss was like, I'm sorry, I couldn't text you. They wouldn't let us use our phones. She's like, I wish you just didn't show up for work today. So she ended up getting written up for soliciting prostitution, which the charges were dropped. They tried to charge me with prostitution, but I had literally just come into work. They had no evidence of me doing anything. They even had a search warrant for my car and went through my car and were like, do you have any weapons in there? Do you have any sex things in there? I'm like, well, you know, I was just at my boyfriend's house last night. No, I wasn't. And I have like a bunch of like kinky toys in there. Like I had handcuffs and a whip and
Right.
like
Yeah,
my
yeah.
kid and like a knife because I'm a sex worker and I always carry weapons.
Right.
And so they went through my car. Like it was a whole thing. They took pictures of all my tattoos.
Oh my God. They took pictures of your tattoos?
And just by putting the charges on me, but dropping them, that meant that I am now in a national database as a potential prostitute, even though no charges were ever pressed.
Yeah.
It's been long enough that they can't press charges anymore, but it's still like, I think about it when I rent places or when like I have to deal with police officers because it's inevitable.
Well, so it'll come up like in a background
right.
check.
It doesn't, but it's in the police database.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
like they know. It's the similar like with the brothels, right? With the brothels, you have to go through a whole background check and you have to get like fingerprinted, and sometimes it's once a year, sometimes it's every 3 months. And once you're in the database as a brothel worker,
Fingerprinted every 3 months. What are your fingerprints gonna change? That's so dumb.
You're sanding them off.
I'm melting them off every
Yeah.
2 months just to fuck with them.
Yeah, what the hell?
It's so expensive. Anyway, but then once you're in the database in Nevada as a brothel worker, that pulls up when you're like pulled over.
Right. And it has nothing to do with why you'd be pulled over, but I'm sure this cop is now going to treat you differently because he can look this information up about you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, or like you're not like a danger to society just because of that work. Like, especially in Nevada where brothels are legal. That's like so dumb.
Well, so that's actually not entirely true. Here's the thing about legalization in Nevada and why I fight so strongly for decriminalization. It creates a two-tier system, and legalization is actually a really loose term for what it really is. So prostitution is only legal in Nevada in counties that have 700,000 or less people and inside of a brothel, which means Las Vegas, it's not legal.
Right.
And the closest one to Las Vegas is about an hour and 40 minutes. And most of them happen to be in the middle of nowhere. That also means, like, even though it's legal to be a prostitute, if you are a like single mom of 3 and you have $10 in your bank account and the electricity bill just came in and they're about to shut it off and rent is coming up and you decide to take to the streets, if you get arrested, you're fucked, right. Especially in Nevada. If it's on a weekday, you might have a 2-day processing period, maybe 3. If it's on the weekend, you're there the entire weekend sitting in a cell with all of the other women who got caught or other workers that got caught, right? That goes on your record. And once you get charged with prostitution, you cannot work legally for a minimum of a 5-year cool down.
Whoa.
Except for my county. So even if you do everything right the second time, you still have a cool down of 5 years, which means that you don't really have an option to get it right because in 5 years, who knows where you're going to be or if you're even going to be alive at that point.
Wait, so can you break this down? So the cool down means if you're busted doing sex work like
outside of the brothel.
Yeah. You cannot work at the brothel for 5 years.
So like you legally cannot work as a brothel employee at any brothel unless they're in Nye County and they make an exception for you for 5 years. There's only 20 brothels and there's only about 1,300 brothel workers in the entire United States, which means of all of the people practicing prostitution in the United States, only 1,300 of them are actually legally allowed to do so.
And the only legal brothels in the US are in Nevada, right?
Correct.
Do you know, because you're a dancer right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is this thing? Like, if you get caught for prostitution in Nevada, you can't get your worker's permit to dance in Nevada. Is that right?
So sometimes, yeah, like it can really affect you. Nevada is very, very strict about those things. If you are working as an independent stripper and you decide to go to like a person's hotel room and Vice is there and catches you, you won't be able to work as a stripper again in Vegas for a cool down period and stuff like that.
That's what I had heard. I was talking to a guy who worked the Vice department in Vegas. We were talking about like, you know, how guys always ask you like, oh, how much for you to come back to my hotel, blah, 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 at the club, right? And that I would always give like a ridiculous number. I said like $50,000, like something crazy that like no one's going to pay, but just so that they stop talking to me about it. Kind of just like, well, you can't afford it. It's $20,000. It's ridiculous. It's not a serious offer. But the guy who used to work Vice, he's like, no, you're giving an exact number. Like, just for fucking around and saying $50,000, like, they can get you on that. And then you can't dance for like 5 years.
I was about to say, now you're a prostitute. That's the line.
Right.
In Portland, the line is exchange of bodily fluids.
So, like, if you make out with someone, does that count?
That's prostitution.
Well, aren't there some states where just taking off your shoes in the VIP makes you a prostitute?
They can't enforce that. There's no way.
Right? Have you heard this?
In some places in Las Vegas, technically you have to keep both feet on the ground during a lap dance. And it's the difference between state and city clubs.
Right. Jade, haven't we been told that before at a Nevada club? We had to keep one foot on the ground during the floor dances.
I think that was just because they wanted to like enforce the air dance situation very like strict.
Oh, okay. That wasn't like a legal thing.
No, I don't think it was a legal thing. I think it was just like, we don't want to see any like bumping and grinding, you know, out on the floor. Like, we keep that to the back rooms. I mean, obviously those are crazy, like your shoes, like taking your shoes, like that makes you a prostitute. But I have heard that is just like, it varies.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
Whereas in like Rhode Island, for instance, you're allowed to practice however you want in your residency and they can't say anything about it.
Really?
There's loopholes.
You mean if you saw clients like in your personal residency, they can't bust you for prostitution?
Correct.
Damn, let's move.
No, but that sounds right, because it's like, who's to say what's going on behind closed doors? Or like, who's to say that I went on this day, this guy bought me like a really nice fancy dinner, and then I fucked him. Does that make me a prostitute? Like there was an exchange.
I was listening to episode 25 and you guys said that you had a friend that was not a sex worker join What's Your Price?
It was someone I found on TikTok. But you know what's funny? One of the other sex workers we've interviewed, Vix, she just texted me when the episode came out and she was like, wait, I've like gone on What's Your Price too. And I would meet people on there, go on dates, and then like entice them to like come into the club. That's like how she used it. So just fun fact.
Oh, so it's been around a while.
There's that one. And then there's, I think it's Misadventure, but it's like MISS
Oh,
adventure.
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. That's cute.
That's for like fly me to yous and like all of that stuff and like international travel.
Got it. Got it.
But What's Your Price? I've been on there for years. Honestly, it's a mixed bag. I get a lot of time wasting. The dissociation of people who get paid to go on an actual date versus the people who get paid for sex as escorts is really insane.
Right.
Like there's a mass dissociation.
The distancing, right?
Yeah.
And like I think there's just this huge focus on like sex acts as like defining, but it's like, I mean, we've talked about it, like marriages are like the ultimate, you know, exchange of values. Like a lot of the times there's like the, what is it, one income earner, or I've been on dates where like someone pays for things and then we have sex.
And it's so weird because at least like my experience in paid dates, I'm getting into like more official kind of escorting, and it just sucks. And you know, this is not new information, but for the listeners, because you have to be super clear and like communicate, right? You're like, I'm doing these for this amount of money, but you also can't. So you're like, XYZ, these are like my personal boundaries. This is the money that I'm worth, blah, blah, blah. But also that's alleged and you're donating your money for my time. Like,
Right.
And then after all that, we get into screening, which is like, ugh, so much.
Laura Cohen on Twitter is phenomenal for screening. Totally recommend. There is a wait list right now for it.
what does that mean? What's Lauren Cohen?
Laura Cohen is a person who does screening for escorts.
Oh, so she's just like a contractor you can pay.
The screening that it goes through, it's incredibly thorough. I can't give much information about it because that would endanger all of us, but it's incredibly thorough. And I always recommend screening every single one of your clients, because when I lived in Vegas and I was working out at the brothels, there was a stripper out there who like got kidnapped and dismembered by one of her regulars and dropped in the middle of the desert. So like,
Whoa.
it's really dangerous to do any in-person work. But when you're going into full service and you're going into dates, you have to be extra aware of the people that you're spending time with and extra careful. It's going to shrink your bag a little bit because you're going to have a little bit more protocol, but it's so much more worth that than some of the other situations that I've been in. And I've been in some really scary situations. I didn't screen for years doing what I do, and I'm very lucky that I'm alive.
Oh, wow.
I had a friend who was literally beaten to death and burned in her car for being a Black trans woman who's a sex worker.
Oh, fuck.
Because of the stigmatization of our industry and because of the criminalization of our industry, while we don't necessarily receive more violence than anywhere else, we tend to be an industry where predators find themselves seeking out more victims because we are thought to not have people who care about us. We're thought to not have family. I'm out to my whole family. They all know I do this. My mom made me floggers when I got my first job at a brothel. My mom was a nude